Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. Are you ready to get just a little bit real? Because my next guest is all about that. He is not too fluffy, and I think he would hug you, though, if you saw him in person. But he is a down-to-it kind of person, and that's the way he coaches. That is what he built his brand on, and if you go to his website, you will see what I mean. And just the way he presents himself to the world, you will hear what I mean here shortly. Adrian Koehler is a leadership expert and senior partner at the executive coaching firm Take New Ground. So go to takenewground.com and that's where you'll find him. He coaches executives, entrepreneurs, and founders really on the science of leadership for themselves, their teams, and how to create new unprecedented results and experience fulfillment at their jobs. So he is the senior partner at Take New Ground. He does speaking. He does workshops. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. It's not your typical workshop, your one day kind of come in, get inspired type thing. No, not Adrian. You will hear the difference about what Adrian does here in just a bit. So get ready for that. And he is the co-host of a podcast called Naked Leadership. And there's over 250 episodes of that you can dive into. And we hit on that right at the end here too. So we are going to get pretty deep on some of this stuff. You're gonna hear Adrian's brain and you are going to receive a gift. So enjoy it. Here we come. Adrian, what's up, man?
Hey, man, it's good to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited about this conversation from our, instant chemistry when we jumped on and got to know each other. And anyway, we're gonna have some fun.
Yeah. I mean, just your demeanor in and of itself is interesting to me. And I know people go, interesting. I don't know how I should take that. I'm like,
no, it's funny. I said that to somebody the other day. I said, yeah, you're very interesting. And I put in parentheses, that's like the biggest compliment I can give anyone.
Totally. Because I mean,
yeah.
How many people do you actually say that to?
Very few. I think that a lot, but I only say it to people that I want to get to know. Some people, they're interesting and I'm like kind of a judgment of them and like, wow, that's an interesting move. You blah, blah, blah. But if somebody is interesting, it's like, oh, wow, I wonder what's in there. Like, I want to find out.
Yes, that's what it is. I want to crack that, something.
Yeah.
I want to know what's in there. All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're going to start cracking it. You ready?
Let's do it. I'm ready, man. Always.
Bold and brash are two words you used when we were kind of shooting the breeze before we hit record here.
Yeah.
Bold and brash. I want to dissect those two words. Why do you use those two words?
Well, I think we were talking about our style and what we do with our clients. So I run an executive coaching and training company called Take New Ground. And I was saying that my stylistically, it's bold and brash, and really I am, and the team is at some level too. I'm probably the most bold and brash because somebody's got to be out there on the edge, then everybody else has got to be closer to normal. So why am I bold and brash? That's a long. I don't know if was that the question you asked. Why do you ask? Why do I use those words?
Why you use those words? But I mean, that's some context. Give me some context.
Right. Well, I use those words because it's probably, the most accurate people's experience of me. And why do I choose that as my presence? Especially in the coaching context, like that's where I've got like ultimate freedom, of course, but I own the ultimate freedom to kind of fully be myself. And there's a lot of selves in here, right? I mean, I always say, there's 5 or 6 Adrians. I don't know which one I'm going to wake up to in the morning. But sometimes I wake up with the Adrian I prefer to be with. Sometimes wake up with the Adrian that I got to get in shape, and, I got to sit down with a journal and, get myself off the edge if I'm all anxious or angry or whatever's going on for me. So, but I like being bold and brash. Why? From a work perspective, because it's effective. Because there's always going to be, the inspiration machine out there in Instagram. And there's, Brene Brown's going to keep putting out the next book and whatever, which is like all very comforting, loving, supportive. And that's wonderful. And obviously that's needed. And that's helpful. And then, adults don't change very quickly. If we do it all, we don't change. I say we don't change, period. I say we can transform, which is a distinction we could talk about. But if we do, we usually need, I know for me at least, I need a certain level of pain in order to shift. And, and we could talk about why I think that's true. The neuroscience proves that's true. Is that, there's the anecdote. What's the thing out there is like, we change when the pain of staying the same is worse than the something, whatever, anyway, that idea. The people that I work with are very successful, very smart, very ambitious, usually revered people. They're founders of companies, right? And if they're great, they have like a little force field or tractor beam, whatever they talked about. Like Steve Jobs had that kind of way of shifting, people that was around him. And for me to make the impact I want to make, and for me to get paid the amount I want to make, or I want to, make with them for my time and my energy, I better stand out. And usually if I'm willing to say something that no one else is willing to say to them, then I stand out. Now, I don't say it to be bold. I say it because it's needed, in my view, right? So, and I can be an idiot and I don't know anything, but I have been doing this for a long time. I don't know, 13-ish years now, and I'm pretty intuitive. And I'm more courageous than any other coach that I know. There are probably other coaches that are more courageous than I am, but that's kind of, if I've chosen a brand, I've just chosen to be really courageous. Like, let's leave it all in the field. Let's act like this really matters. Like when you've got a breakdown in your life, we could spend 5 hours talking about why it happened and what caused it outside of yourself and the people and the circumstances and the market and even your history and whatever. You can go do all that and things won't change at all because external things created my experience and created my choices. Go ahead. Nothing new is coming if it came from outside of you. If it came from you, like I assert that people either create the reality or they allow the reality. I don't think there's anything else. And if that's true, I think that's good news. But that's like bad news for the ego. Like our view of ourselves, that's, their survival needs. We talk about our survival needs as looking good and feeling good and being right and being in control. There's a kind of the survival needs, or we could probably call them the ego needs. So if you're going to actually say something that penetrates somebody, especially a person that's got like a lot of momentum and thinks they're right most of the time, and they might just be right most of the time, and they don't listen very well because they don't have to. And they think that's the strategy that got them where they are, is depending on themselves. I just tend to take a swing at being the guy that's going to take a baseball bat to them out of love, really, really out of love. Like, it's not like I'm saying it like I'm a jerk or something. No, it's fierce advocacy is my game. That's what I call it. Like, I'm going to advocate for anybody I'm talking to. I want them to get what they want. But usually it's under so many layers of BS that there's really low percentage chance they're actually going to get what they want. They might get what they claim they want, but not what they really want. That takes guts. That takes vulnerability to actually say what I really want. Like, so for example, with some of the founders I work with, they want to be seen as successful and significant in the eyes of their peers, of course, and their family and their, culture and the market and all that. But a lot of them, when I talk to them, it's like, I think you don't want to run this company. And that's the truth for most of them, is they don't want to run the company. They want to start the company, but they're just so scared to death, and they don't trust people, and they don't train people very well, and they're not very humble. And so, and they don't even, they're so intuitive, they don't even know how they're good. So it's tough for them to scale their expertise. You know what I'm saying? So, but in their heart of hearts, they would like to step away, but that there's fear baked in that. Like, how would they look to themselves or to other people if they stepped away? Would they be a quitter? With most of my people, they're not quitters. They are resilient mofos. But what they really want is to step away. And I don't have to take a baseball bat to get that point across. That's more in hushed tones, because it's more of a, would you just relax and let what you really want hit the table? But at times, to get to that point, I've got to be willing to risk the relationship in every conversation. That's what I promised them. If we work together, I'm going to risk the relationship in every conversation. Why do I do that? Because it makes the relationship unique. And if I'm not unique to one of my clients, then whatever, I'm just another TED Talk. So,
Okay, so
I
let
want
me
them to
let me
trust.
ask you.
Yeah, hit me.
Sorry. Let me ask you on that point though, because I was going to ask you earlier when you started talking about the ego stuff.
Yeah,
Is when you go in, people know what they're getting when they engage with you because of who you are, and they probably have heard about you or got
right.
recommendations or they've seen you
Yeah,
somewhere and they're like, I
90,
want a little bit of
95,
that.
90. Yeah, 95 or 90, somewhere between 95 and up, come to me because they're friends with a client of mine.
So you've got this brand that kind of exists already.
Yeah,
When you're dealing with the ego with theirs, which is this, idea of self-confidence or self-identity or
yeah.
whoever we are,
Which
right?
we
That
all have, right?
preserves,
We all have.
which
Yeah,
preserves us. Yeah.
right.
So, I mean, the
Necessary.
ego is just what it is.
Right.
And when we lead with that, understanding that ego and understanding who you are, coming in saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to take risks with you.
Yeah,
And I may say some stuff probably you may not like, or it's going to make you uncomfortable or whatever it's
right.
going to be. How
Yeah.
do you, when you're going into situations, how does the ego play into all of that with you as a coach and then with them as leading? Is there a difference? Do you work on that with them? Like, how does that play out?
Yeah. So your question is, it sounds like a two-part question. One is like, how do I deal with my own ego? And
Well,
then
yeah,
how
I
do I
mean,
deal with theirs?
I would say more just theirs right now
Okay,
and
that's cool.
understanding the leader as the person in dealing with you. What's their ego like in dealing with you, the coach? And then what's their ego like in dealing with their people and leading their companies? Is there a difference or
Yeah.
how does that play out?
Well, most people are on automatic. And by on automatic, I mean they're just doing what they call a Thursday, and they're being what they call themselves. And there's nothing really new, and they don't question themselves very much. They might be insecure and they might be in shame about something, but they're not curious about themselves, really. Um, some of them might go to therapy or something, but rarely do any of my clients go to therapy. And so they're not that curious about themselves, yet they do know if I'm in a conversation with them, because I start to get them. The aim is to get them outside themselves for a second and just become objective. Just let's look at ourselves. Let's just see. We're going to start when I'm in a conversation about myself. I'm going to start with results, because I say current reality doesn't lie. Like, results don't lie. We do, but results don't lie. So let's start with results. I say that's gravity in life. Whatever happened is what's true. So I'll always say intention equals impact. So let's look at impact, and then that'll give us a clue into what our intention really was. So let's say we're going to launch this new product or whatever, and it's going to make us $5 million in the first quarter. Great. And it made us $1 million. And I'll say, well, now we know that you only wanted to make $1 million. Why do I know that? Because you only made $1 million. Now, it's a counterintuitive way of looking at things, and they're going to have 55 reasons why I'm not right. But reality's on my side. So let's look at that from an open, let's just wonder about it. If there's a difference between I want to make 5 million and I'm committed to making 5 million, if there's a difference in those two statements, would you want to know? And if I actually wanted to make 1 million and I've been lying to myself, and that lie, if played out over time, is going to ruin the company, would you want to know? And of course they'll say yes to that, because I don't know, they could say no, I don't want to know, but everybody's going to at least say yes to look good in their own eyes or to try to please me or whatever they're going to try to do. And then we're going to do an inquiry about it, and we honor results. So back to ego, The ego comes to do its job. The ego comes to help me survive. And that's number one agenda of the brain, is to survive, like make it to tomorrow. And the number two agenda of the brain is to save energy right now so that I can survive later if I need to. So there's lots of ways that we save energy. Man, there's a 5-hour answer to this question. Let me see if I can get to a point. There are ways of, so I say it this way, that results all come from actions we take or don't take. All actions come out of decisions we make or don't make. All decisions come out of a certain type of thinking, and all thinking comes out of a belief, right? Out of a framework that we all live with, that we might or might not be aware of, like a blueprint, or I call it the occurrence, whatever. We all live in this thing. Now, a lot of these, most of these, I would say even, most of these beliefs are unconscious to us. We know that from the neuroscience, right? We take in 2 and 4 million bits of information every second or every minute. We only process 139K. Between 2 and 4% of the information our brain is doing math on, we're aware of. The rest is just happening in the background, like on your phone right now. There's a bunch of programs running. You can't manage them all. It manages it for yourself. The brain works the same way. Part of it is this conversation called ego, which is, who am I? I want to look good. I need to look good, because that's actually evolutionarily good to look, if you're going to make it, you better look good to your peers. You better look good in your own eyes so that you actually are motivated in the morning and don't hurt yourself, and, don't become lazy. You want to be productive. There's some version of the future that will require your best self, that kind of thing. So the ego is doing its job to try to get you to the table. But there are aspects of any of those conversations that are full of self-betrayal, because we're scared to death to look in the mirror long enough. We usually won't entertain the fact that that's true, and not even true on accident. Like, it's actually true, like we're lying to ourselves on purpose. And that's not even a problem. Like, I don't have a moral stance really in any of this stuff. Let's just get down to like reality. Reality is, in that meeting, Tom didn't deliver on what he promised he would deliver, and I went off on him. Why? Because I wanted to look like the tough boss. Or most people, Tom didn't deliver, and I changed the subject. Why? Because I didn't want to have the conflict in front of these other people. Or, I always was complicit. He was going to do that thing, and he asked me for something 2 weeks ago, and I was quote unquote busy, and I didn't. So if we got into the real conversation, he would say, well, hey man, I asked you for something. You didn't give it to me. Of course I didn't deliver. So for all those reasons of looking good or feeling a certain way or being right or being in control, we'll have these stifled conversations. And I don't think we're unconscious of most of those. We just can't dare to look in the mirror. I mean, there's this guy named Werner Erhard, who's a guy from the 70s, philosopher. And he said, we're all inauthentic as human beings. All of us, we're inauthentic as human beings, and we know it. And the best we can do is to be authentic about our inauthenticity. Like, there are times in which I'm lying, I'm holding back, I'm not fully participating, I'm putting on a show. I say I believe these things, but I don't live them out. We do this all the time, all the time. And the best thing we can do is just own that. Because if we own that, then at least we're closer to reality. Otherwise, we're just living out this fantasy thing. So if I try again to get to a real answer to your question, the soul wants integrity. That's one of my core beliefs, that our human soul wants integrity. And integrity is wholeness, not like perfection and nobility and that kind of stuff. Like, people talk about integrity is like telling the truth all the time. No, integrity in its etymological sense is wholeness. So putting things together. So just like Jungian psychology, that really spent time studying the shadow self, which he says is essential for human development, is like, we do have a shadow. We can't run from it. And we all know it. I've got plenty. I could tell you stories about how I've chased the shadow and ruined sections of my life doing that. So I'm familiar with my inner criminal. That's what we call it, like a shadow self. And I need to befriend all those things. And I think the soul does, is like, otherwise we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to look good. And that's painful and a lot of energy. And we're playing a game, and we know it, and everybody else knows it. So I always say, like, that when a leader has a revelation, they're the last one of the party. Like, everybody else knows what's going on for the leader once they're finally like, oh, I'm arrogant. Oh, yeah. Yes, you are. Yes. We've all known that for a long time. So it's a comforting and it's a loving conversation because I want them to like get off of their natural compulsion to look good in their own eyes. Because if they can do that, then they can hear other people. Then they can see other people. Because if I'm familiar with my dark side, your dark side does not bother me at all. It actually draws me in because and I would say this for myself. I was going to say mastered my dark side. That's of course not true. I'm a friend to it though. And so whenever I want to steal or lie or, all the stuff I've been doing since I was like, a kid, right? I mean, I don't know. Remember you? I remember stealing stuff as a kid. It was kind of thrilling and fun and lying and getting away with stuff. Shoot, not that. I mean, anyway, even just little bitty lies. If I know someone else's criminality and they're willing to show it to me and be real with me, I'm a lot closer to them than somebody that's like really busy trying to look good. So to deal with their ego is to invite them into the conversation they're dying to have, but scared to death to have.
And you bring them into that conversation. Do people go willingly into that conversation?
Yeah, if we do any work together. I mean, in an initial conversation with them, if somebody connects me to somebody and like, hey, you should talk to, my friend, great. We'll do a cordial, whatever, talk for a few minutes or whatever. And then I'll just listen to them. I'll ask them what they want. And then we're usually off to the races because even the most ambitious people are really confused about what they want.
So give me a bold and brash question that you really like gets to the heart of it. Like for you, like what is kind of like I'm not telling you to give away your secret sauce here, but like what's
okay.
bam, you ask it and you get some brilliant stuff out of it.
It's funny. I don't have a what would they call it? Anyway, like a holster full of killer questions. I'm just listening. So I'm asking simple questions like, so tell me what you want. And I'll just listen to them in a way nobody else is listening to them. Because I'm going to listen to their patterns. I'm going to listen to what they're emphasizing. And I'm going to listen to what they're omitting. And I'm going to put all that over context. That's kind of one of the formulas I work with. Patterns plus emphasis plus omission over context. Context is whatever the aim is. So I'm going to listen for those things. And I'm essentially paid to notice everything. So that's what makes me annoying to people because I'm not going to miss much. And I'm going to ask anytime I notice something, a little light goes off on my dashboard of my brain. I'm going to ask about it. And so there's not like a gotcha question. There is a willingness to point out and own current reality. Like when they leave something essential out, I'm going to ask about what they left out. And I'm going to notice what they left out. Or I'm going to notice what they're focused on and what they're spending a lot of time trying to sell me on. And like they might be talking about the future the whole time, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go and I'll say, okay, well, where are you today? And it's a big gap, which isn't a problem. That's a big gap. It's usually might be a good sign. And if they've got, let me give a better answer. They will typically, because human beings, we love to complain about things. So they'll give me some kind of complaint and they got a big story about it. It's usually very well practiced. It's like one of their favorite songs and it's over and over and over. They tell me the same, and I'll just say, great. How long has it been that way? And they'll say something like, oh, a couple of years. And I'll say, this is probably my closest thing to your question. Well, let's imagine you actually like it that way. Like your senior leadership team isn't that engaged, or, your co-founder isn't focused. Let's just make that up. Let's say your co-founder isn't focused. Okay, great. How long has it been that way? Oh, a couple of years. Great. Why do you like it? Why do you like having a non-focused co-founder? What are you talking about? I don't like it. I wish he was focused. Really? Well, you're pretty smart and pretty articulate. So, and I say that whatever you don't want in your life, you pretty much get rid of. So you've kept this around for 2 years. Let's play the game. Let's entertain for a second that you love having a non-focused co-founder. Let's talk about the payoffs of that. Why might you? I'm inviting them to get outside themselves and to just take on this counterintuitive question. Why might you like the thing you're complaining about? And they'll resist it. But then when we start talking, they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, I do get to be superior. I get to do whatever I want. I actually get to spend money however I want because they're not focused. I get to rule over the staff because he's not paying attention. I get to take on whatever projects I want to take on too. I get to go on vacation whenever, blah, blah. I'm justified. I'm entitled. I get to, they slander him, when he's not around. There's lots of payoffs to having this judgment. Now, what are the prices of having that judgment? Well, there's, increased stress, decreased cash, confusion and chaos on the team. I'm bitter and resentful, and I'm spreading that to the team because, the bitter root defiles many, the old rabbis say. And, it's like there's tons of prices to not having the conversation in a way that works with my founder. And why don't you have it? Oh, if I did, he'd blow up. If I did, he'd leave. Okay, so now you're being a prostitute. So you're unwilling, you're selling out and blaming him for it. Let's talk about that. So little stuff like that isn't commonplace type conversation, but it's what's needed. It's what's needed to actually get real, because we can't get, I said it the other day, it was kind of catchy. It's like, if there's not a now, there's not a next, right? If we don't have a now, we can't get to next, essentially, something like that. Like, if we don't get to current reality, then the future is just a fantasy. So, a lot of my work with folks is getting them real. Like, let's get honest. And, the old rabbi said, and the truth will set you free, something like that. And I'm not a king of the truth, but I am always searching for it.
There's a interesting thing that you're talking about with the authenticity, the getting real, I take it you're a no nonsense individual. I'm just testing things here.
Well, I mean, for sure, when I'm wearing my coaching hat, yeah, that's what they pay me for.
Okay. No nonsense, right?
I'm intense, no nonsense. Like, I'm not here to mess around.
And I will tell you that if people go to your website, which they should, because it's beautiful, number one, just from a design standpoint, it's cool. It's gorgeous. But looking at even the language you use on the website, right? Yep. It's bold, it's brash, no nonsense.
No nonsense.
And I think it's a place for people to just like dip their toe and say, hey, is this for me? Yes or no? Like, it's pretty quick that you're getting a feel for what your philosophy is and how you approach leadership in a really unique fashion. And I love that. I think that's brilliant. And I would,
thank you. It took me a while. I didn't have a website, kind of on purpose, for like the first 6 or 7 years. I kind of prided myself in not needing a website to get clients, because so many coaches, quote unquote, coaches in my industry just live by a click funnel and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. I want my results to produce the work. So I didn't even have a website. And then it took me a while, which kind of plays into this, I think, of kind of owning my own self, right? And why I love coaching is because I get to be myself full blast. And I've always been, historically, I've been a little too intense for people. And I spent a lot of time trying to hold back a little bit so other people were more comfortable, or so that I was more comfortable with them being uncomfortable, that kind of thing.
Are you talking about your clients? Or are you talking about people that work with
people in life? I mean,
or your kids? Who are you talking about?
I mean, across the board, man. I mean, even like growing up as a kid, I was like, in my family, I heard it's, hundreds of times, hey, Aid, you're too serious, man. Why don't you relax? Or too philosophical. You're too psychological. You're too intense. Like that I'd get that feedback from time to time. And so Adler calls this a life lie, like the thing that we're scared to death we are, and we spend our lives trying not to be that thing. And so for a long time, I held myself back. And then just probably I think it was about 7 years ago, I just decided I'm an acquired taste, just like Scotch or something like that. It's like, I'm not for everybody. So I'll go ahead and be fully me for the people that I'm for. And they appreciate it. And so if people get onto my website or talk to me and I'm way too much for them, wonderful. There's tons of other coaches that aren't my style. And there's like, most of them are not my style, because most of them are like really nice people and come off really nice and kind of do the nice guy thing. And that's great. But that's just not me. But I am exactly right for a person that wants to deal with now in a way that's invigorating. For me, it's about vitality. Because if if I think there's a direct tie between personal responsibility and life and vitality. And I think it's a 1-to-1. So if we're off at all in our personal responsibility, like owning the fact that I make choices that generate my reality in every experience, I'm weird. So here's what I believe is that every experience I have, I am generating. Like there's nothing you could say to me right now that would create an emotion for me. Is that if you said something, even, I mean, I'm pretty unoffendable, but if you said something that was really offensive to me, it would be how I would relate to what you said that generated my experience, not what you said. So if we're willing to stand like that, like I'm responsible for everything in my life, like I'm not the cause of everything. There's a distinction there, which we don't need to get into, but I'm responsible for it, especially if it's ongoing. I say if I can stand like that, then I've got unlimited amount of vitality and aliveness and energy and engagement and possibility and hope. And the future is unwritten and I am unstoppable if I am responsible. So I could fail, no problem. I can own it quickly, ask for forgiveness, make something right, get up and go again. And I just keep rolling. Most people don't live that way. Most people want to look perfect and want to be perfect. And so they live walking on eggshells, scared to death that they are what they know they aren't. Sorry, how do I say that? We know we're not perfect, but we want to put on this thing like we are. And so we spend a lot of time trying to look good in my own eyes or in somebody else's eyes. And we spend a life like half cocked, like we can't get there because we're not willing to put it all on the line. So on the website and all that, I just decided I'll just be myself and that'll do the trick. And, since I put that website up, I've expanded my rates probably 5 times multiple because there's certain people that want that and they're the ones that are usually pretty successful.
Tell me right now if we want people to get better in the next hour, something bold and brash. What am I going to do in the next hour to be better?
In the next hour.
Yeah, man.
Like if somebody's listening to this and they actually had some kind of thirst to have some kind of breakthrough, that's what you're saying?
Yeah. They would.
Yeah.
Just
because I'm not a better guy. I mean, I'm a little bit, more and better and different are the reference points for that are obviously the past because we don't know if something's better unless we're looking to the past. And so I would first invite somebody to stop looking at your history to gauge what you're doing right now. I would look to your future. I would look to what's possible for you. Like if you were 100%, so if you're listening, if you were 100% courageous and 100% confident and 100% honest and you were okay with however that landed for other people, and don't be a jerk. I mean, be loving, like love people. I love people harder than most people I know. And I've got room for anybody. Nope. I'm not judging anybody. You could say you just killed somebody, Scott. And I'd say, great. Well, did you bury the body yet? Let's talk about this. Are they really dead yet? Because we might bring them back to life. I don't think you really wanted to kill them. But let's talk about it. It wouldn't be like, oh my gosh. So if you want something amazing in your life, then stop looking to the past, look to the future. And if you were all those things that I just described, people know what they would do next. They have a long list in their head right now of the things they're tolerating. It's a long list. It is. I mean, we just did a podcast episode about this. If you want to hear our podcast, it's called the Naked Leadership Podcast because great leadership is vulnerable. You know what to do. So I would just make a list of all the things. If I was 100% courageous and really honest and wasn't scared and didn't follow my fear as if it's a problem, but followed my fear as if it's an indicator of where courage is needed, everybody right now listening knows what conversation they would have and what action they would take. And I just go do that. And if you're really gutsy, because you're going to chicken out probably. So the first thing I would do is to call somebody that actually loves me and holds me accountable and say, hey, I've had this thing. I've been putting up with this and I'm done putting up with this. And I need to now do X. And I'm going to do X in the next 24 hours. Can you call me tomorrow at noon and ask if I did that thing? And then you put yourself on the hook. And now you're using your ego for your benefit because we all want to look good. And that's not a problem. But I can shape the game for my own benefit. Like I do this all the time, especially with stuff I'm resisting and things I don't want to do. I do it all the time. I'm like, hey, I'm going to send you that proposal. I hate doing proposals. I hate doing anything involving paperwork. And I'm going to send you that proposal by tomorrow at noon. But I've given my word now. So now I'm not going to be a guy, because welcome to my world. I'm not going to be a guy that's going to break my word. That's like our number one, kind of the big game inside the game, is to keep and live your word. So I'm going to make a promise to somebody that I'm going to do something I don't want to do. So that's what I would do next. I mean, you don't need a zinger question to find out how to, I said breakthrough versus better, to get what you want in life. You just need balls. You just need courage. And there's no way to escape that. You could have a good life without courage. I've had a good life, really good life. And even seasons that were horrible were better than most people, because I'm talented and engaged and blah, blah, blah. But the life I want now will require me to be courageous. And for a guy like me, and maybe people that are listening, it actually takes a lot more care than challenge, because I do challenge all day long. Usually the breakthroughs in my life are me really around the concepts of like self-acceptance. Like, hey, it's okay. It's okay, man. Like, you're not, um, it's okay even to, like, to quote unquote be normal. Like, relax. Why don't you take a nap? Why don't you like go play some golf? Why don't you go relax? That's actually usually takes a little more courage for me than like going and planning the next thing, or, doing a podcast or something like that. That's all hat for me, because I like a challenge. So relaxing is more challenging for me than struggling. Struggling is usually pretty fun for me, but I'm weird.
Weird. You're interesting, Adrian.
Yeah, I'm
You're
interesting, man.
You're interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me about Revenant. What is that?
Yeah.
Tell us, give us a little preview of what that is, and this life-changing experience that people should take you up on if it's for them.
Revenant. I went through the Revenant about 15 years ago. I met a guy named Dan Tacchini. Dan Tacchini had been doing this transformational leadership work since the late 70s. So he's an OG, and he's been in this coaching space. I mean, his first coaching company was called The Coaching Company, right? So he's been there from the beginning. I mean, he was like, consulting, doing stuff at ESPN, talking to the, C-suite and saying, hey, I'm a coach for your leaders. They're like, what? We don't play sports. What are you talking about here? Anyway, so he's been around forever. And as soon as I saw him operate in a room, everybody that's listening to this probably knows what I'm talking about. When you get around a leader that's just like compelling, and you're like, holy cow, how does he, and you're just kind of baffled by, I imagine it's like if you sat down with, Mozart at a piano or whatever, and just watched him do his thing. Dan's like that with people. And he's brilliant. He's like, I joke, he's like, if Mother Teresa and Yoda and Tony Soprano had a baby, that's Dan Tacchini. He's a unique individual. And as soon as I got to see him, I thought, I want to be around this guy. So I went to this thing called Revenant, and it rocked my world. What did it do? It revealed to me, it did lots of things, but the biggest thing is it revealed to me conversations that I was in about myself, beliefs that I had about myself that I didn't know I had, but really had been running the show. And I was essentially a slave to them. I was locked up, to use your metaphor. I was locked up by this idea. Like, one of mine, when I first went through, was I got feedback that I was like a good soldier. And I'd realized, man, I'd spent 20 years of my life trying my best to be a good soldier. And that's laudable. It's helpful. It works in society, but it's also self-restrictive, because there's things that a good soldier can't do, because he is being mastered by duty instead of giving himself to full expression. So anyway, it's a 4-day leadership training. Now this guy, Dan Tacchini, and I co-train it. We do several of them a year. It's the easiest entry point to somebody that wants to shake their world up and like generate something brand new for themselves. It's the easiest entry. I mean, people can, hire us or people on my team to coach them and all that kind of thing. And we're not cheap, but this is easy. And it's 4 days. It's long days, like 10-hour days. If you say you want to come, somebody on my team calls you, and we help prepare you to come, right? So we help you think about what's working and what's not working, and really what's missing in your life, and what your longings are, and what you want your vision to be. And so you come into the room clear for yourself. There's probably 30 or 40 people in the room, but everybody's there for different reasons. for their own reasons. It's not like they're to go learn something. Don't go somewhere to go learn something. You can do that online. Just go to experience something and to experience yourself in a brand new way. And we're in the type of inquiry that rarely do people get, because we're not there to get answers. Everybody wants answers. Answers seem great. You can market answers all day long. We're actually there to find the types of questions that, to use your metaphor, unlock some new conversation, some new potential, some new future, unlock you being, trapped by your past and what you've made up about your past, whether it was something that happened to you or something you did that you live in regret about. Something gets unlocked, and that people experience a sense of freedom that comes out of taking personal responsibility. And so, I was telling you before, like, we ran a survey of 2,000 recent grads, and somewhere up around 90% of them said it was in the top 3 experiences of their life, even next to like getting married and having kids and that kind of stuff. So I was going to say it's a magical experience. It really is. It comes out of nowhere. We actually practice the art of surprise. And that comes out of a willingness to go be curious and try something on, and like get out of our dogma of like what we think about me and you and the way the world, we all live in this dogmatic view of like, that's the way it is. That's who I am. That's who you are. That's how life is. That's what a podcast is supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. We all live in this preset notion, back to being on automatic. And if you were to step out and get curious for a second and stand on that possibility that maybe this is true as much or more than what I'm really sure is true, then a whole new vista opens up for people. So it's 4 days. We've got several of them already lined out for next year. Tons of my clients come, and tons of people come. I mean, we don't advertise, so it's just word of mouth, stuff like this. So if you're interested, just go to wearerevenant, REVENANT.com, and check it out. And if you're curious and you don't know about it, you want to talk to me about it, hit me up on Instagram, adrian.k, and we can talk about it. You can talk to somebody on my team, and we'll have to see if it's the right environment for you. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not like some kind of sit in the crowd like at a Tony Robbins thing or something like that. It's not just sit like a good student and go take notes and think information will change your life, because it won't. Integration will. And we're going to invite you to take a whole bunch of risks beyond what you think you can do. We're not going to go walking on coals and all that kind of cheesy stuff. We are actually going to invite you to do the deeper work. So the things that are really stifling your life, and it, and things you're participating in, you're stifling your own life. We're going to invite you out of the shame conversations that keep you there and into some possibilities that you might actually be really powerful. And people are scared to death to be powerful because then they're responsible, but it's freedom. So that's what that was a really long answer, but that's what it's about. It's about inviting people into complete vitality, which requires risk, and we're there for you. And so as a trainer, I'm scared to death every time. I'm so nervous because I'm not there teaching stuff. I'm not there with a whiteboard and write down these 7 points about how to have a better life. That's not the way it works. We're in a deep dialogue, a deep conversation as a group. And you get deeply connected to people. Some people that go to the Revenant together, they have like new lifelong friendships begin there because they've suffered together, they've taken risks together, and they've been vulnerable together, and they've expressed themselves together, and they come out brand new on the other side. It's really amazing. Some people say it's like 10 years of therapy in a weekend, and I would say that's true. Probably 20 years.
Are there a lot of hugs that happen?
Sure, rock and roll, man. Hugs, whatever. You can do whatever you want.
Got you.
Yeah,
Got you. Hug. No coals.
No coals. No, we don't do the cheesy stuff. And I get why Tony does that stuff, but because it's kind of iconic, and you can walk on. But it's harder to have a conversation with it's harder to have a real conversation with your wife than it is to walk on coals. So we go with what matters most. Yeah, that's right, man. Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Like I feel like my life changed a little bit just listening to you talk about it. So
you would dig it, man. Would you come? Are you interested in coming?
Do you sponsor people? Like,
what do you mean?
Like, can I get a scholarship? Can I get can you, if I, I don't know, put a little banner on my website, will you give me like $50 off?
I'm up for any conversation. I live in a land of plentiful requests. You can say, hey, can I come free? And I'll say no. Because you got to have some skin in the game, homeboy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amen, brother.
Have some skin in the game. But you dig it, man.
You're open.
I'm open to everything.
Though. I appreciate that. You're gold, man. You
You're
said,
sweet.
well, that wasn't a very short answer. I was like, are any of your answers short though, Adrian?
No,
No, because
no.
they're chock full of your brain. I can see your face. People, if people are watching this on YouTube, you can see your face. Your face is like, your brain's going like, and your mouth is trying to keep up with it. And
Yeah.
just the gold that comes out of there was just like, it just
Oh,
keeps layering and layering, and then you like back it up, and then you go forward a little bit, and then you like it's all
you're
coming together,
kind.
man. It comes
You're
together.
kind.
It comes
I'm
together.
trying,
So
it's
I,
like I'm
it's great.
43 now and I've started to give up. I lived under this banner that I was lucky for a long time, or that I'm good because I've got good instincts. And I'm started to really, I hope this comes out right. I've just started to own my own gifting and whatever. And I've always been like, ah, shucks, I don't know. I just get lucky, or, because I don't like study myself very much, or even, I haven't been as brilliant as you to go write a book or anything. But all that to say is like, thank you, number one. And what used to baffle me, like, I don't ever use weed because I get really lost, because my brain already sees the complexity of any moment. I see the 7 layers, at least I see my version, whatever. I'm making shit up, of course, but I see those 7 layers. And for me, that's always fascinating. I'm much more fascinating than other people. I don't think people are as curious about how reality works as I am. And I'm starting to uh, give myself permission to just be that guy that sees it that way. And for some people, for a lot of people, especially my clients, that's what they come for, is like, oh, I can see reality in a way now that works. I get it. I get why I'm in tension. I get why I'm under stress. It's not because I didn't get enough sleep last night, like every freaking, like the bumper sticker type answers. No, it's deeper than that. And you ought to
Yeah,
think about the deep end. The deep end's where the fun stuff happens. Don't stay in the baby pool. Let's get in the real stuff. So anyway, I
that is
appreciate
the fun stuff.
I
Well, and
appreciate you,
you
man.
said it multiple times, this word permission. And
Yeah.
I'll let you say the word unlocked about 5 times in your
Yeah.
revenants thing, but no more
Yeah.
than that. You can have it 5 times.
Yeah.
There's something brilliant about that whole idea and about what you're trying to do. And it's
Yeah.
tapping into that inner whatever it is that's keeping people from giving
Yeah.
themselves permission to be that. And that thought process sounds like what Revenant's all about, and how people can kind of break out of that. So I appreciate
Right
you for
on.
doing that. Naked Leadership, people should check that out, because if they want more of your gold, more of your thoughts, more of whatever's up in there, that non-weed brain of yours, like people
Yeah.
need more of that. So
Well,
check
it's
out Naked
fun. It's
Leadership.
it's yeah, it's me and that guy Dan Tacchini, and then our counterpart Chad Brown, who runs all the marketing, and he's a brilliant coach on our team as well. We talk about what leaders are up against and how to think about it in a way that like makes it generates approachability for sure. Like if I see things, like if people say like I'm bad at conflict, I'm always going to avoid conflict, right? Because I've already decided it's bad and I'm bad at it. So I need to spend my time doing everything I can to not getting close to it. But if we can talk about how to resolve conflict, which we did a whole series, we've done so many episodes on conflict because as humans, we don't like it. But if we talk about it in a way that actually makes it approachable, it's like, oh, I can do that. I can say that. That makes sense. And then we get closer to it. So it's all around how to view even very tactical things like hiring and firing people and setting goals and all that kind of more cheesy business stuff. We'll talk about it around how to think about it and then how to talk about it. Like, because great leaders are paid for their brain and how they articulate reality. That's, if you're a great leader, that's what you're doing, is you're setting a context, right? You're generating culture that people want to be in. And there's ways to do that that opens up possibilities, and ways to do that shuts it down. So most of our podcast is us just talking about what people are up against. So if you're a leader and you have any kind of challenge, we've probably got an episode about it if you scroll through all those 250 episodes. And we also just ask people to start telling us what they want us to talk about. So if you've got issues going on for you, specific issues for you, send me a note, Adrian.K on Instagram. And if I like it, we'll probably do an episode on it, because we want to be helping people on the ground. So if that's you, let us know. We'll do a conversation about it.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant.
Scott, you're the best, man.
TakeNewGround.com, wearerevenant.com, and also Naked Leadership, and on Instagram, people can check you out. So, dude, this has been so good.
You're
So
the best.
fun. I've enjoyed people just need to like hang out with you for a few hours.
Come on, man. Come on out to
so-
LA. The sun is shining.
One day, I've got some friends out there. I do need to get out there. My wife lived in San Diego for a little while, so we make a little trip of it.
That's great, man.
We lose a whole day coming back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Visit West Hollywood, man. It's happening over here.
All right, man. Adrian, you're brilliant, dude. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Thank you, buddy.
I honestly don't know what to say. I seriously could have talked to him for a very long time, just because I wanted to dig into so many different aspects of the conversation, things that he would bring up and say, well, you could ask me about that. And I did want to ask him about that. And I wrote it down, but for the sake of time, we wanted to make sure we got to the point of what we were trying to get to. But I honestly think that I'm going to have him back to talk more about some of these principles, because I can tell there's a lot of stuff up in that brain. And I think we need to kind of dig it out a bit more. This idea of being bold and brash. And I kept bringing that point up because yes, it's his brand. Yes, that's kind of what he thrives on. But I think that's what the mentality is that we need to take as leaders and as individuals, being bold, being brash, and seeing what we can do to make people and ourselves a little bit uncomfortable. Because here it is, my friends. The comfort zone is lined with excuses and defensiveness for why you should stay there. The comfort zone is lined with it. If we can step out of that, if we can get a little vulnerable and shake it up a little bit, we will understand what transformation is all about. Not just change, but transformation. And I do want to dig into that because he brought that up earlier. We didn't get time, but I would love to dig into that. What results, and I just had a quick coaching call after my interview with him, and I wanted to ask my client this, and we didn't get into it too much, but I wanted to ask him this. Based on my conversation with Adrian and based on what he says, what results are you not satisfied? Why are you letting this continue to happen? Basically saying you're enjoying this right now. You're enjoying this contention. You are you like it. And just posing that question because you're not changing it. You're not doing anything about it. You're just kind of living in it. And then you complain about it. So let's dissect that a bit. And where is that coming from? And I think that there's something really interesting all of us can take away from that exercise. And what are we going to do? We can make that list of 100 things, whatever it is. And what are we going to do about it in the next hour to make sure we take action, to make progress, and to move forward? And he did talk about this idea of being curious. Are we curious enough about ourselves to dig deep into what's making us tick? That's something for you all to think about. Adrian, thank you for being on the show, man. And all of you, go check out Naked Leadership and check out his I'm going to call it an excursion. It's not an excursion. That's what you do on cruises. I don't think this is quite that thing. Although, I don't know, maybe you should attach a cruise to this whole thing, Adrian. But Revenant, wearerevenant.com. Check that out and see if you want to get deep and have some kind of life transforming experience. Enjoy it. Thanks a lot, Adrian. Again, see ya. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.